Why use an e-collar? This is a very controversial training tool that a lot of people are against. They feel very strongly against this piece of training equipment. A lot of people most people actually misunderstand this training tool. And even though the so-called experts, the so-called trainers who supposedly know how to use this, they themselves don't even know how to use it in the first place. And that's why the e-collar gets the bad name that it gets, the bad reputation, and in the wrong hands it can damage a lot of dogs. And I've seen it firsthand, and it's pretty sad and horrible. However, if used properly, if used in a humane way, is actually a very gentle way to train your dog. And why is it gentle? Why is it why is it humane? I know this sounds very controversial. It sounds very it makes no sense, especially when you hear everybody saying that the e-collar is evil. But the reason why I think is one of the more gentle ways to train is because if I only apply the vibration on the collar, if I apply the vibration on the collar or a low level stimulation, that means I don't have to crank and yank the dog. That means I don't have to go physically put my hands on the dog to arrange the dog into a certain situation. Okay? Another thing too, why this is so effective is sometimes I get clients that have back problems. I have clients that have had a stroke. I have clients that are they're elderly people. They don't have the physical strength or stamina to be holding onto a leash while the dog is dragging them while they go for a walk. So this, if used properly, and if they're taught how to use it properly, this alleviates those people who can't use their bodies that much to control their dog and have a meaningful and loving relationship with their dogs, where they don't have to be afraid to take them out, down the road, to take them out for a little walk. That's why it's so effective. A lot of people don't see that. All they see is just the evil e-collar, and this should be banned, and everybody who uses it should be I don't know, put to jail. I'm not sure, but they don't see that. They don't see the people who had the stroke, who can't control their dogs. They don't see the people who are about to put their dogs down. They don't see the people whose dogs got killed by a car because the dog just went out running chasing something. They don't see those things.
Good job. Good job. Yes. Free. Good job. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. He's doing pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Toby, let's go. Come on. Come on, Toby. Come on, Toby. Let's go. Come on. Good job.
The vibration setting is one of the settings that I use most of the time, even more so than the electrical stimulation. The electrical stimulation, all it is it's an involuntary muscular stimulation, muscle contraction that, it feels really weird. uh, especially in with dogs, because it's a very unnatural feeling. Same thing with the vibration. The vibration is a very unnatural feeling for dogs, which is why it's so effective in training them to stop certain behaviors. So this is going to be the stimulation, the electrical stimulation. You always start with the lowest level. That's the way I do it anyway. So you always start with the lowest level. So this is level 1. So I feel a little bit of a tickle there. The dog that I'm training on this particular remote right now, I have not gone past level 1. I've only used level 1, but again, most of the time I end up using the vibration setting with him. So I've not gone past level 1, but I'm gonna go on level 2 on me. So there's a muscle contraction there. It's involuntary. You see that right there. So it's just a weird feeling. It's not a shock. A lot of people out there who don't understand this call it a shock collar, and they think it's a shock, like a lightning bolt that goes through your body, and it's not. That's the most ridiculous thing that somebody could ever say. Usually the people who criticize this are people who've never used it, people who've never taken the time to learn about this, and they just are people who just repeat what somebody else said. So just do your own research. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
I'm gonna go down the road a little bit. Come up to grab it. You don't mind? I love this dog.
And yeah, there are people who are out there saying, well, what about the clicker? You can just use the clicker and teach the dog how to do things, and then you don't have to worry about the e-collar. Well, the clicker is wonderful. It's a great training tool. It's a great training tool, but it requires a lot of skill that your average homeowner, your average dog owner does not have. Because with the clicker, your timing has to be really good. The clicker, if you don't use the clicker appropriately, it could be stressful on the dog as well. And the clicker could lose its meaning completely. And then your clicker training method is completely out the window. Another thing that the clicker cannot give you is if the dog is not in food drive, if the dog is full, if the dog has no interest for your treats, or if the dog decides that the environment is more enticing than your treat pouch, your clicker is going to be meaningless. If your dog sees a cat and your dog happens to love or hate cats, whatever you want to call it, and it bolts for that cat into the road, your clicker will be completely meaningless. And that's just the way it is. And whether you agree with that or not, that's just the way you're gonna have a very bad experience with that. But the e-collar or traditional training method with the leash and a training collar will be more effective because you will teach the dog discipline. Discipline is something that you can't necessarily teach with a clicker.
No, that leash sucks up.
So that's why the e-collar, I think, is a great training tool. I think it has saved lives, and it's continuing to save lives if used properly. I would rather have a dog, even if I have to crank this up to level 7, to the top level, in a case of an emergency. I mean, an emergency. Okay, I've never cranked it up that high, but if I ever had to crank it up for an emergency, I mean, immediate response is required to save the dog's life. I would much rather have that than to have my dog killed by a snake, or to have my dog killed by a car, or to have my dog killed somebody else's cat. So that's my opinion about the e-collar. It's a great training tool. It's not for everybody. It's not for every dog, but it's not evil. Again, this is just my opinion, and you know, everybody out there is entitled to their own. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but it's just the way it is.